Good afternoon and welcome to the Major Employment Investment Project Approval Commission meeting. Staff, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Austin? Present. Delegate Ware? Here. Delegate Watts?
Here.
Delegate Krizek?
Here.
Delegate Bulova?
Here.
Delegate Sickles?
Present.
Delegate Torian?
Present.
Senator Stewart?
Here.
Senator Eben?
Here.
Senator Deeds? Senator Locke? Present. Madam Chair?
Present.
Secretary Cummings?
Here.
Secretary Merrick?
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Before we begin our project consideration, staff has updated the MEI policy on electronic meeting participation and all virtual meetings to reflect recent changes to the enabling legislation. I'll ask staff to review the changes, then entertain a motion to adopt the revised policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The draft electronic participation in virtual meeting policy tracks the FOIA statute and incorporates recent changes from the 2024 session. Those bills were SB 734 from Senator Marsden and HB 894 from Delegate Bennett Parker. Part 1 of the remote meeting policy addresses remote participation by individual members during in-person meetings. There are 4 times when individual members may participate remotely: disability or medical condition, the same for a family member requiring the member's attendance, the member lives 60 miles from the meeting location, or a personal matter identified with specificity. You still need a quorum physically assembled for an individual to participate remotely at in-person meetings. If all requirements are met, they can participate fully in all business before the commission. For Part 2, it addresses all virtual meetings. These are limited by law to 2 e-meetings per year, or half of the meetings held. Virtual meetings may not be held consecutively, and otherwise we follow the standard FOIA notice, logistics, and informational requirements. I would also add that this policy tracks substantively the same provisions we've adopted for many other interim work groups and commissions.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the electronic meeting and all virtual meeting participation policy.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. The purpose of today's meeting is to review and consider for approval the financing of a proposed economic development project for the Commonwealth and the second extension request of one active project. The incentive package requires MEI commission members under subsection 30-309 of the Code of Virginia because it includes combined incentives that exceed the $10 million threshold. Under the code provisions, the second extension also requires MEI review. Call for a motion for a closed meeting, please. For the commission to consider the proposed incentive package and potential for new jobs and capital investment associated with the unannounced project, it will be necessary to meet in closed session. Senator Locke, I believe you have the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the MEI Project Approval Commission convene in a closed session to discuss a previously unannounced manufacturing facility project in Planning District 12. The closed session is authorized pursuant to subdivision A5 of section 2.2-3711 and subdivision A39 of section 2.2-3711. Pursuant to section 2.2-3712F of the Code of Virginia, the Commission also requests that council and staff attend because it believes that their presence will reasonably aid the Commission in its consideration of the topic that is the subject of this closed meeting.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, then we are now, while we are in closed session, those watching the meeting online will see a screen that notes the feed is not currently in use. And so now we need to have
We're just pausing to make sure IT ordered the session.
Okay, we're back online. I'll ask Stephen Kinderman to lead a roll call vote to certify that only matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements were discussed in closed session. Stephen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you certify that to the best of your knowledge, only matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and identified in the closed meeting motion were discussed in closed session? Delegate Austin? Yes. Delegate Ware? Yes. Delegate Watts?
Yes.
Delegate Krizek?
Yes.
Delegate Bulova?
Aye.
Delegate Sickles?
Yes.
Chairman Torian?
Yes.
Senator Stewart?
Aye.
Senator Eben?
Aye.
Senator Deeds? Senator Locke?
Aye.
Madam Chair, Senator Lucas?
Aye.
Secretary Cummings? Secretary Merrick?
Yes.
The vote passes.
Thank you. I will now ask Senator Locke for a motion related to the incentive package reviewed by MEI Commission in closed session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the MEI Project Approval Commission recommend for approval by the General Assembly the incentive package from the Commonwealth of Virginia as described to the Commission this day by the Virginia Economic Development Partnership Authority and per the Commission's discussion in closed session. This recommendation includes a proposed incentive package applying to a manufacturing facility project in Planning District 12.
Is there a second? We have the motion and a second. Well, I will ask Steve for a roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Austin?
Yes.
Delegate Ware?
Aye.
Delegate Watts?
Yes.
Delegate Krizek?
Yes.
Delegate Bulova?
Aye.
Delegate Sickles? Chairman Torian?
Yes.
Senator Stewart?
Aye.
Senator Eben?
Aye.
Senator Deeds? Senator Locke?
Aye.
Madam Chair,
Aye.
the vote passes.
Explain the second extension request.
Under the Code of Virginia, for any project contracts for incentives, there's a provision that basically says if the company does not meet its metrics by the performance date, we can extend the performance date with a vote of the VDP board. We do that occasionally for certain projects when it's merited. If a project still has not hit its metrics upon that first extension, there's a provision that says it can be extended again for a second and more extension, second, third, fourth. It requires a positive vote of both the VDP board and MEI. That is what I'm bringing to you today. This is a data center related project. The extension request relates to their use of the data center sales and use tax exemption. This is an existing data center. It's in operation today. This is not about the sunset of the tax provision itself. It's just about extending the performance date for this particular project that would enable them to use the tax exemption. You guys follow me so far? Okay. So this is now a company. This originally when let me pull this up. Originally when we entered into this agreement, this was a company called Cyxtera Communications, based in Loudoun County. This particular data center based in Loudoun County. Cyxtera filed for bankruptcy in November of 2003 before completing all of the requirements to qualify for the exemption. The Cyxtera was acquired by a company called Phoenix Infrastructure. And so Phoenix Infrastructure now owns this data center in Loudoun County, which is in operation. So Phoenix Infrastructure is basically making the request to get a little bit more time to hit the targets to qualify for the data center sales and use tax exemption. You can see the timeline for all of this in the top left. This is towards the bottom right, or bottom left, excuse me. You can see that the company has already qualified for the capital investment requirements. So they've already invested 160% more than the $150 million threshold on CapEx. They are behind on jobs. So they have created 31 of the 50 required jobs. And so basically what they're asking for is more time. They want to extend until April of 2024 to get a little bit more time to ramp up on the jobs and qualify for this tax provision. This is a project that has already been approved by the VEDP board for a second extension, and I bring it to you for your consideration.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, Jason, if you could just help me understand a little bit more about the extenuating circumstances of not achieving the 50 staff positions. And I guess my concern is if they are already up and running and operational, why they haven't or why they couldn't already meet that 50 staff member limit at this point. And where were they in terms of that staff level the first time we went ahead and did an extension request?
Yeah, Delegate Bulva, good question. I may need to lean on some of the team to answer those details. I'll ask Catherine Goodwin to see if she can help. I will say, I think the kind of bottom line is that the circumstances of the bankruptcy and the way that the timing in which Phoenix purchased the assets of the bankrupt company was, a set of circumstances where, Phoenix inherited this sort of situation, if you will. They have made 7 new hires already. I think it's just a matter of time. They need more time to get to the full 50. I think you might want a little bit more than that. Catherine, do you have anything to add to that?
The only thing I would add is they've let us know that they expect to have new tenant agreements executed this week, and between those agreements, over and above the 31 that they currently have.
Delegate Bullock, you want to continue what? Are you done? Sure, that's right.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Bullock?
I guess a follow-up question, and I wanted to make sure I understood this correctly as well, in terms of the dynamics of what we're talking about. So they're at 31 jobs, 19 more to go. So we're talking about 19 jobs.
That's exactly right.
However, and I just want to confirm this, if we don't approve this extension, we get a clawback of $13 million, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
To follow up on Delegate Bulliver's, Madam Chair, thank you. To follow on Delegate Bulliver's question, so I see that the request for the extension is from 8/1/24 to 2/1/26. Is that correct?
Yes. So I believe what this means, Mr. Chairman Torian, is that they currently have a performance date of 8/1/2024. So that was the first extension. And what they're asking for now, and I think I misstated it earlier, so what they're asking for now is to extend that until February of 2026. That is the request.
Madam Chair, follow up.
Mr. Chairman?
So in concert with Delegate Bulliver's question, they need 18 months to create 31 new jobs.
18 months is the standard extension period. So they're not saying, hey, we need 18 months exactly. They're saying, hey, we'd like a second extension. And these extensions have been handled in 18-month increments. I think that's largely something that is guided by code.
Senator Stewart?
Oh, shoot, sorry. I'm new on this, so I have a couple questions about this because I'm trying to wrap my head around this to see why this is good for the Commonwealth or the Commonwealth citizens. if they continue to operate, they'll continue to get this exemption. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair,
Senator Stewart.
do they get a complete exemption from the sales and use tax?
And just to be sure, Senator Stewart, if
They pay any-
if they continue to operate with 50 jobs, then they get the extension. And I think your second question was, will they continue to get it and qualify? And the answer is yes. As long as they are hit the 50 job, 150 million threshold, they will continue to qualify for a sales and use tax exemption on the purchases of equipment that are exempt, basically the technology that goes into the data centers. If they expand the building and construct a different additional space, some of that would be taxable. But in terms of the computing technology that goes into the data center, the core technology and equipment, that would be exempt.
So, Madam Chair. So if we agree to an extension, they will continue to operate, receive the benefits of the sales and use tax exemption. Do they get 100%, or is it a partial exemption?
I believe it is 100% of the state sales and use tax.
So they're not paying any sales and use tax on the qualifying purchases?
That is correct.
Okay. Madam Chair, follow up. I don't know who to ask this to. Maybe it's our staff. Maybe it's somebody who's a heck of a lot smarter than I am. But as I look at this, they've created 31 jobs at a cost of $13.5 million to the Commonwealth of Virginia in exemptions of sales and use tax. And I think generally this data center sales and use tax exemption is about at $1 billion a year, or just under. So, I mean, it's almost like we're paying them $500,000 a job to create. Is that an unreasonable analysis? Somebody help me with this. I'm having a real hard time with it.
I can take a stab at it, Senator, and definitely something I'd love to dig into, because I mean we've done extensive analysis on.
Well, I need help today.
Yeah, so
please.
I mean, keep in mind. I mean, you mentioned the jobs. This is a company that has also already invested $240 million, much of which was taxable. So a lot of that $240 million significantly benefited the general fund. I don't have the numbers in my back pocket to give you,
Madam Chair.
but that there is a significant tax benefit to it as well.
Senator Stewart.
How does that really benefit us if they're not creating any jobs for the Commonwealth? I guess that's my question. And we're paying them $500,000 a job.
Yeah,
How does that benefit the Commonwealth and the citizens of the Commonwealth when all the other businesses out there are paying taxes and they aren't getting these exemptions?
Yeah. So a couple points there. One is, I believe that in the absence of this exemption, the Commonwealth would see very little data center activity. In other words, virtually every state has a data center sales and use tax exemption of this kind. All the states around us, virtually the entire East Coast. And what I further believe that states that do not offer this kind of exemption commonly available are unlikely to see sustained data center investment over time. I think one of the reasons that Virginia is a leader in data centers is because we were an early adopter of this kind of exemption. So I think to get data center activity, I think this kind of exemption is table stakes. If you take it away, does data center activity disappear in Virginia immediately? No. Does it disappear over time? I think the answer is likely yes. So then the question is, well, what are the benefits of this? So I personally believe if a state does not offer this kind of exemption, they're unlikely to see data center investment. They're unlikely to give up the revenue that is represented by the exemption, but they're unlikely to get the revenue that we are benefiting from today. And that revenue comes in a number of different forms. So just to recap the major pieces of it, yes, there is revenue on the direct jobs. The 50 jobs do generate revenue, not a ton of jobs in the grand scheme of things. The primary revenue sources and the primary job creation sources from the data center industry are the indirect ones. So I believe the major benefits of data centers from a job standpoint and from a revenue standpoint are from the construction-related activity. So, if you look at the data center footprint, we estimate that there's about 15,000 construction jobs that are essentially building data centers full-time in Virginia. So 15,000 construction jobs, a lot of revenue off those construction jobs. Furthermore, revenue on some of the construction materials, some of the furnitures and fixtures that go into data centers. That's a big piece of it, but also all of the revenue that comes off the indirect and induced jobs that are not employed by the data centers, but that are a very material benefit. So, that's my kind of best summary assessment of it. I do believe that when you look at the net of what is this incentive doing for Virginia, it is massively positive to the general fund, revenue that we would not have in the absence of this incentive or exemption. Also, when you look at the totality of employment that is caused by data center activity, it is very, very material. So it's both indirect and direct.
Senator Stewart has one more question, and then we have, in this order, Krizak, Sickles, Watts, and then back. Well, Stewart, I guess you were up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your patience. And so just one final question I'm trying to understand. Given the tax exemption, and I understand that there's a clawback on that because they're taking advantage of it as they go, what sort of security does the Commonwealth have to actually be able to claw that back if this company were to enter into bankruptcy? I understand it's a tax lien, but you also can't get blood out of a turnip. So how do we know that we could actually get that back if they continue on and then eventually go under?
Yeah.
Or don't meet their goals?
I believe ultimately it would be the responsibility of tax, the Department of Taxation, to determine that. But my understanding is that ultimately it's something that could be pursued legally through the Office of the Attorney General, if it came to that. That's my understanding. Others in the room may know better than I do on that.
Okay, now we have, Mr. Chairman has a question, and then in this order, we have Delegate Krizak, Delegate Sickles, and Delegate Watts. That's the way you appear in queue. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, is this the second request for an extension?
Yes, sir, it is. This is the second time this company has asked for an extension, although I say that it's the second time this data center has asked for an extension. I believe the first time they asked, it was from the prior company that went bankrupt. So second time, there's been an extension request. This first time at MEI. So the first time, old company went to the VDP board and it was approved. Now you had a bankruptcy, you've got a new company, and they're saying, we want to extend again for this data center that we just bought. We want to extend our performance date. The VDP board approved that, and now it's under your consideration.
Okay, Madam Chair,
Mr.
follow up.
Chairman.
Are we required by code to give them if we approve the extension, are we required by code to give them 18 months to meet the 50 job threshold?
Is it 18 months required by code? I think that's the question. Yeah. We need to check on that, Chairman Torrey.
Does the attorney have an answer?
We're checking right now, Madam Chair.
Follow on to that.
They're saying how much time they need. How much time do they need? Is it 18
I gotta
months?
follow
Are they saying,
on to
hey, we
Luke.
need 18 months, or we need 10, or we don't know?
It's a follow-on question to Luke's.
Yeah, well, he's figuring out the answer to Luke's question.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Delegate Krizak, Madam
Oh.
Chair, I just wanted to follow up on the questions from Senator Stewart and the chairman. Would the $13 million that has been that to date has been exempted, is that number continuing to grow? And what would that number look like after the next 18 months while we're waiting for them to get to 50 employees?
Delegate Krizek, I think the answer is yes. It's beginning to grow. We don't have a sense of the rate of growth. It may be, it could be very modest if all of their purchases have already been made. If they're continuing to do refreshes and so forth with new technology, it could grow considerably. We do not have insight into that.
Delegate Krizak, does that conclude your line of question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Next in queue is Delegate Sickles and then Delegate Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, in following up on trying to figure out the answer to the chairman's question, what was Phoenix Infrastructure told about this when they bought the company? What were their expectations about what the General Assembly would do when they bought the company that had not been able to meet the conditions of their previous agreement?
Delegate Sickles, I don't think we did anything in terms of, giving them an indication of what the General Assembly would do.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So I was on the wrong mic. Madam Chair, if I could follow up.
Yes, you may.
So could you give us the best case on the innocence, so to speak, if I in quotes, of Phoenix Infrastructure, and they weren't the company that failed. They've come in and purchased a company that went bankrupt. They were probably told that they could get an extension of this of the sales tax exemption when they purchased the company. And should we feel any sympathy with regard to that condition that they bought the under?
Yeah, well, let me say, Delegate Sickles, and let me say to all of you, this is definitely something, I'm just trying to present the circumstances to you as accurately as I can. This is a decision that MEI is empowered to make. We did not represent anything to Phoenix about what the General Assembly is likely going to do or not do. I suspect that, I'm certain that they were aware of the sales and use tax exemption, the fact that it existed. I think they likely had, an expectation that this kind of extension would be considered sort of fairly given the circumstances. I really don't know how they sort of pegged the odds, if you will. And I don't think VDP had any conversations with Phoenix about that in terms of at the time of purchase. I don't think VDP had a conversation about how to sort of navigate the particular situation that you guys are considering right now.
Delegate Sickles, you may continue.
That answer, I guess that answered my question.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following up, so as I understand your answer to Delegate Krizek, the $13 million plus as far as a clawback stays on the table no matter what we do with the extension. Given that, how common is an extension being a new member on MEI? And is there any provision, as there would be in tax law, for a standard interest on a clawback payment?
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand the second part of your question, so I'm going to ask you to go back to that. But in terms of how frequent this is, it is uncommon for us to see a second extension request on a data center. We have, I would estimate, on the order of, probably many dozens of data center sales and use tax. What would you say, Sam? More than 50 different agreements. I think this might be the second extension. This is the second time in the history of the program where MEI has considered whether to grant a second extension on a data center project. VDP, at any point in time, we have on the order, this is not just data centers, this is all incentive agreements. At any point in time, I would estimate we have about 400 in place. Those span multiple years, but in any time we have about 400 or so, don't quote me on that, but on the order of magnitude, active incentive agreements The number of times we consider a second extension request in a year is a number that I could count on my hand. It is an unusual thing. This is a rare case, and I would say this is an especially rare case considering the circumstances of the bankruptcy of Company 1 and the purchase of these assets by Company 2. And yeah, you had a second part.
Follow-up, Madam Chair?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So as I absorb your answer, the precedent then that we are potentially setting perhaps is the only time that this has been involved in a sale of the property, that transference,
Delegate Watts,
bankruptcy or otherwise.
Yeah, I believe that is true in terms of the transfer of the bankruptcy. I mean, that's certainly true of a data center. This is the first time you've had sort of a bankruptcy, a new company coming in asking for a second extension. And I think that, in many ways, as you consider how to act on this particular request, I think it's something, not just about this particular company, but, what it means for, other similar cases in the market.
Final follow-up, Madam Chair?
Yes.
So with that answer, I do become concerned that if we proceed, that there be a very specific outline of what happens when a company that has an incentive sells, so that we understand clearly how the obligation goes with that sale and any other thing that might be put into a real checklist so that no company thinks that it doesn't have to check on this and can just say that it goes with. And then secondly, along that line, as I understood your question, you're checking on the interest issue. I do think since we have a long-standing standard interest charged on overdue taxes, bills, et cetera, that any clawback also ought to be with interest rather than just at the dollar value that that payment was made.
Mr. Chairman?
Madam Chair, we're just waiting on the answer from staff in regards to the question that I raised earlier.
Madam Chair, Chairman Torian, the 18-month time frame, we can't find that in code, so I think that's dictated by VEDP policy and their agreements. But if we find anything to the contrary, we'll let you know. But we can't find anything in code that mandates an 18-month extension period.
Madam Chair, follow up.
Mr. Chairman?
Madam Chair, given the conversation that we've had, my only concern is that we're talking 50 jobs, high-paying jobs that that this company has not been able to reach. And I think, in the past, some of our history have shown that we've looked favorably upon providing extensions, certainly if there's a first request. This one here raises a red flag because there is a second request in all the history that is behind this company. I certainly would be open to modifying this 18-month request, limiting the amount of time that they would have to comply. And if they don't comply within a shorter period of time, then other actions should be taken.
Jason?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I did not hear the full question. I was trying to get the statute pulled up.
Yes, my statement is given the history of the company and the transitions, and also we have dealt with requests for an initial extension by other companies through MEI. We've done that, but a second extension, in my opinion, raises a lot of red flags. I do not agree with an 18-month extension. If that extension time period could be reduced, I would certainly be open for that consideration.
Yes, sir. And I believe that is within your discretion to determine. Is that right? Let me just turn to staff. There's not like an 18-month prescription in there, is there?
Madam Chair, no.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
There's discussion here, and I think we might be coming up with a compromise time frame.
Madam Chair. I guess for Jason, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess what we're trying to figure out what a reasonable alternative to 18 months is. And I wanted to get your thoughts on what is the quickest reasonable turnaround that we might be able to expect to see the full 50 staff members.
Do you have any idea how much time they really need? Yeah. Delegate Bulva, I don't think we have an indication from the company about how much time they need. We've talked to them about an 18-month extension being sort of a tradition that is consistent with VDP guidelines. So I think they had 18 months in mind, given what is in our guidelines today. If you ask me the question, like, how much time do they really need? I do not have the answer. I would say if you guys have concerns about 18 months, I would advise giving them as much time as you feel comfortable giving them.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Madam Chair, I am asking this question for the purpose of trying to understand how we can move forward with a recommendation. Do we just offer you guys a recommendation and put it in the form of a motion?
Mr. Chair, that would be fine. If you want me to offer a recommendation, I could try to do that based on what I know.
The next order of business is a consideration for the extension or an alternate time frame. So,
Madam Chair,
Mr. Chairman,
I'm just speaking in reference to the issue on the time. My concern on the issue of the time frame. I'm not. If we approve, given a second extension, then the question for me would be how long of an extension. So I think first of all, Madam Chair, we would have to act on agreeing to an extension, and then how long of an extension. Am I in order with that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you are. And one thing that you guys might want to consider is that there is a prescribed time period for the Commonwealth's Opportunity Fund exemption or extension. So there's a separate code provision for the Commonwealth's Opportunity Fund that provides for a 15-month extension. That is in code. Just sharing that as a reference point. Doesn't look like you want to use that reference point, but FYI.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I believe that Senator Locke is prepared to make a motion on whether or not we're going to have an extension. And then I think we'll come back to what you might consider an alternate.
Can we ask some questions?
I think before we move further, though, we need to get some legal advice. Senator Stewart.
I personally look at this and feel like we should not grant an extension, and I may be the only one who feels like that. But they've created only 31 jobs during this period. They've taken significant resources from the Commonwealth, and I just, I see these other businesses out working hard, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. I think this sets a really bad precedent. We're going to offer them incentives like we have. I think we should remain firm that you've got to meet your goals within a certain period of time, and that's that. That's just the way I feel.
Senator Locke.
I understand what Senator Stewart is saying, but this is not the exact same company. The original company went bankrupt, and this company actually took over that company. So it is not as though you're giving the original company the extension, correct?
That is correct.
So you are, if this had been the same company, you would not have given them an extension. Is that correct?
I would say if this had been the same company, we would have looked at the circumstances. We might have come to a different conclusion. Obviously, it would still be MEI's discretion to award the second extension, whatever the circumstances. But yeah, you have characterized the circumstances here correctly.
So given that this particular company took over from the bankrupted company, you want to give them an opportunity to move forward
Yes, ma'am, that is what we're proposing.
under different circumstances,
Exactly.
is what's happening?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It can be debated.
Mr. Chairman, you go ahead before I start babbling off here.
Jason, let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
Is it paramount that we act on this today, or can we come back for another meeting and then have all this ironed out?
Point of information, and I'll come back and hit your question. The team is, the VDP team is communicating with the company right now, asking them how much time do you really need. The company is saying we really need 18 months. I would say if you guys are not prepared to to act favorably on it today, or if you can't come to a consensus on it, I think taking it up in a future meeting is something that I would encourage you to do.
Mr. Chairman, after you, Delegate Watts, what's your question answered in that statement? Mr. Chairman.
I do have a follow-up.
Mr. Chairman, you next.
So if we do not act today, the company will still be operational, doing what it does, and they will still wait on the decision by MEI and its time frame. And then once MEI issues the decision from the committee, then the clock starts. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. You are under no time pressure to make this decision today. Obviously, the business would like some resolution. They would like favorable resolution, of course, but there's nothing about the code, there's nothing about the process that boxes you in from a time perspective. If you need more time for this, you can have, I would advise taking more time.
Secretary Cummings?
Yes. Do we have a sense for how much time was lost in the midst of bankruptcy from their execution of their project?
Catherine is saying it was not a lot of time lost due to bankruptcy.
All right.
Yeah. We believe, Secretary Cummings, it was about a 5-month loss of time.
Madam Chairman.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Sorry, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm not trying to demote you.
I think it might be a consideration to give a short period of time, which gives you another look quickly to see if they're on track and then make a decision. I think there clearly was a business disruption here of a company that was in trouble, that while it was 6 months in the process, that they've invested a lot of capital. I think they've exceeded the capital target, which was originally laid out. So perhaps you give them a much shorter window than looking at. It comes back to MEI and decide if you're satisfied that they are getting back on track and make a decision then. And I think the idea of interest is a good idea. There's some penalty. I think that is just exchanging notes. There's only been one other second extension, I understand, which was due to COVID. So a real good reason. So I think we have to be careful what we do here.
Just speaking personally, I would be in favor of just putting this off to another meeting, date to be determined. But in the interim, would they still be operating under the same time frame? I'm talking about in terms of the date that they requested the extension. Would that date change, or would it just continue from that date, we're still moving forward? Because when we come back, it may not be 18 months, we may, let's say we don't come back another 3 months, or 6 months, I don't think that long. But then that would only mean it didn't have another year left, right?
That's right,
Depending on
yeah.
when we come back?
Yeah, yes, Madam Chair. So basically, I mean, effectively, the company is operating, the company's trying to create these jobs. So if, for example, MEI punted on this for, say, 3 months and came back to this, that would give them more time to create jobs. You could then consider, exactly when you want to sort of reset the deadline, if you will. So I think you're describing it correctly.
Delegate Watts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would add to the discussion as we look at it, I would really appreciate, since this is a resale, I don't really know anything about the company that has bought this. As if it were a new one, I would have some idea, as you have before, given us the profile of this, the stability and this, and what this company's background really is. And I think this is particularly important, as I've experienced some of the data center issues that may be emerging because of the push for ever more data centers because of the AI energy capacity demand, that I would really like in that relook that you also present us with a look at the profile of this new company.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to say to my colleagues, thank you so very much for the conversation. And I don't want Senator Stewart's comments to be lost, because our job, as I see it, is to make sure that we protect the Commonwealth of Virginia. We want to be good business partners, but we also want to protect the resources of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I also recognize the takeover of the company, and that this technically is their first opportunity before MEI making a request. But let me be very clear about this. If we decide to punt the ball down the road for 2 or 3 months, they need to know that when we meet again, if they have not demonstrated to us that they're able to perform and do what they need to do, then I'm done with it.
Delegate Watts, you're still in queue?
Good.
Questions by any other member of the committee? Then I want to, I would like to see us defer this until another meeting, a future date. Don't know when that might be. So I'm not even sure if a motion is in order. If we just, okay. Okay, then I'd like to see us defer this item to a future meeting. All in favor? Aye. There you have it. Well, that was lively. If there's no other business to come before the committee, then this committee is adjourned.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
The Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.